Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and it's been a while since we've done a tier list on the channel. We used to do them every Sunday, but things got a little bit crazy lately and I just haven't got around to it. So I thought, why not end the year at the last Sunday with a tier list? And I thought, let's do one we've actually done before. We've never done this before, but we're going to go over every single hero portrait in the game ever, because there have been a lot added to the game since I did it last. And plus, the last time I did it was basically an impromptu on-stream thing, and I was half joking with a lot of the pics were kind of memey. So let's go over it. Let's take a look at every single hero portrait and rate them from tier S to D, not F this time, because somebody already made this template, and I'm lazy and didn't want to remake it with an F. So F is just being like God tier, amazing. I love this portrait. I'll never get sick of it. And D, or F, is just like garbage that I never want to use. And I'll laugh at you if I see you using them on ladder. Unless you like it, then that's fine. Anyways, let's take a look at my favorite portraits, or rank all the portraits on this tier list. So let's start with Illyria Windrunner. This is actually one of the few portraits I don't have. It was available to buy in the shop back with like Magni and stuff like that, and it's a really solid one. It has a really cool animation. I always liked it more than Rexxar personally, and I just couldn't justify spending like $10 on it, and I never did. But I gotta give it a solid A. I think Illyria is a pretty rad portrait. Next we have Altruc Thrall. This is available in the Tavern Pass right now. It's a Shaman skin, and I think it's the best of the three that they added to the Tavern Pass. I like the animated background, the snowy, fierce Thrall. I like it quite a bit. I'm going to give it an A. It's actually probably my Shaman portrait of choice. It's pretty solid. Next, we have Anduin of Prophecy. This is the level 50 Battle Pass priest portrait, and I think it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of most of the level 50 portraits in Anduin of Prophecy. He looks a little like, I don't know. It's just kind of in that middle range. I'm not a big fan of Anduin. I have a lot of unnecessary priest hate that I just can't help, but I'll put him as a B. He's just kind of mediocre. We have the classic Anduin next, and I hate Anduin. I hate everything about priest. Priest makes me feel sick. But, I mean, it's iconic Anduin. You can't really go wrong with it. I'm not going to give it an F or D or whatever you want to call it just because it's got Anduin there. I'll put it with B. I like it more than the level 51, but it's still in that middle range for me. Next, we have Anhild, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a warrior portrait. It's part of the paid Tavern Pass right now, and it is exceptional. It has like this brick border around the portrait. It looks really good. The animation's nice. The hero power looks cool. I love this. I really like this portrait. It's probably my favorite warrior portrait at the moment. There's some good ones. I'm going to give it an S. I think this one is really sick, and if you are going to buy the Tavern Pass, it's one of the portraits that actually makes it feel kind of worth it. Next, we have Arcanist Jaina, part of the paid Tavern Pass thing, and it's okay. It's Jaina with like a little elemental thing, and it's kind of, it's okay. It's not great. It's a little bit cartoonish for me. Definitely one of the weaker Jaina ones. I'm going to give it a C, just not really big on it. Next, we have a Rama Starseeker. This is one of the first payable Demon Hunter portrait, and I've been using it ever since I got it. It's really solid. She looks really cool. I like her border when it's golden, and it's made me feel less of a degenerate playing Demon Hunter, even though I still feel like a pretty big degenerate playing it. But I like Arana. She's pretty sweet. I'll give her a low A. Definitely a fan of that one. Next, we have a level 50 portrait in Arcanist Jaina. A pretty sweet rendition of Jaina. She's got like this giant staff. She looks pissed off, like you don't want to deal with her. It's pretty solid. Not like the greatest, but it's all right. I'll put it with the level 50 Anduin. It's a pretty decent one, but still kind of middle of the road. We have Mage Jaina, yet another Tavern Pass Jaina portrait, and this one's more like magical based. She's got like the green staff, the purple things coming out of her hand. It's all right, kind of middle of the road. I'm going to put her with the Apprentice Jaina. A little bit higher, but still, I'm not super sold on that one. Next, we have Captain Balera. Balera is like a pirate. She's got the patch, and I love the way the daggers look. Some people hate this one, think it's too jokish, but I think it makes Balera look kind of cool. I like the pirate aesthetic. I like the eye patch, and I love the daggers. I'm going to give it a low A. I really don't mind this one at all. I use it quite a lot, and I am not on the hating of the costume Balera at all. Next, we have the level 50 Wing Malfurion portrait. I really like the beams coming out of his hands. It's pretty sweet. Not my favorite Malfurion portrait, but it's one of my more preferred level 50 ones, so I'm gonna give it a low A. I think it looks pretty cool. I just like the whole, definitely the hand animation's pretty sweet. So we have Corrupt Garrosh, or Ebola Garrosh, as Frobro likes to say. He's kind of like this mutated, old goddish, corrupt Garrosh. And you get him for getting 1,000 warrior wins. Not one of my favorite warrior portraits, but it's not bad. I'll put it as a B. It's kind of middle of the road. I just, there's other warrior stuff I'm always going to pick over it, but, you know, it's not horrendous or anything like that. Next, we have Dane Hazelbark. This one is, like, one of the most talked about, hated portraits in all of Hearthstone. It's creepy, it's weird, its death sound is like, it's out there, but I like it for the reason that if you're playing it, your opponent knows they're going to be intimidated. They know it's intimidating because who in the hell would rightfully use Hazelbark? So automatically, you're in their head. You automatically get in their head. I'll give it a C. It's pretty awful, but in terms of that mental game of getting your opponent's head, I gotta elevate it beyond a fail, but yeah, it's pretty out there. Next, we have the Warrior Skin Deathwing. People love this one. I keep being told it's the best warrior portrait by far, S tier all the way, and I just never see it. I think it's good. I think it's solid, but for me, Deathwing is just really kind of cool, but not an S. It's not an S. I'll give it like a high A, but I still cannot give it an S. I don't care how many people tell me it's S tier. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Next, we have Demon Bane Illidan, the level 50 portrait. It's Illidan. It's kind of worse than the other two, and I'm not even a fan of the basic one. I'm not sold on this Illidan. I'm going to give it a C. It's just not for me. I'm not really a huge fan of it. And then we have Demonic Illidan, the 1,000 win Illidan portrait. And I love this portrait so much that I am still trying to get myself to get through 1,000 Demon Hunter wins, despite the fact I don't really love the class that much, because this Illidan looks so badass. Animated, looks spectacular. I have to get it. I'm about 300 wins away, and I'm not going to stop till I get this. This portrait is S tier all the way. I love it. It just looks so freaking badass. Next, we have Earth Fury Thrall, the level 50 Shaman portrait, and this one's just like way too colorful. Like the orange, just like it's glaring. I could barely see Thrall in there. There's like the little green head kind of hidden away. I really don't like this one from what I've seen of it so far. I'm actually going to give it an F. I'm really not a fan of the Earth Fury Thrall. Next, we have Elise Starseeker, the Druid portrait, and this one for me doesn't come off very Druidish, like not like Malfurion or anything like that. It's a good portrait. It just doesn't feel like it should be in the Druid class. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a B. And maybe any other class, I feel like Elise could fit in. I just don't feel like I'm playing Druid when I pick Elise as my portrait. Next, we have Fel Heart Gul'dan, and for me, he doesn't look Gul'dan Warlock-ish. There's too much green for me. I don't know. I'm so used to like the purple background with Warlock, and it's okay. It's not great. I'm gonna put it with the Illidan, the level 50 Illidan. It just doesn't feel right to me as like that Warlock portrait, especially for that level 50 reward. It's kind of a letdown. Next, we have Fire Mage Jaina, the mage portrait you get for 1,000 wins. S tier all the way. This Jaina, to me, just looks spectacular. She looks like a badass. She's got the white hair going, the fireballs. I love it. It's just pure awesome Jaina. We have Garrosh, the original warrior portrait, and I think the warrior, especially when you get 500 wins with this Garrosh, golden, his throne lit up, the fiery, everything going on. He's an S tier portrait. I love the original Garrosh. When I first saw him golden starting as a new player, that's when I knew I had to get a golden portrait, because that one just looks so freaking awesome, and I love it to this very day. Next, we have Garrosh of Might, the level 50 warrior portrait, and this is probably my favorite of the level 50 portraits. I think it looks really sweet. It's kind of clean. It feels clean, especially when it's fully animated and all that. I'm going to give it an A. It's not quite the S tier. I'll put it a little bit below Deathwing, but it's a really good one. It's one of the best ones, and I guess because it's not all colorful and cartoony, I like it a bit more for that reason. And then we have Giant Stalker Rexxar, the level 50 Hunter portrait. It's okay. It's Rexxar. It's better than the 1,000 win Rexxar. It's not saying much, but it's better than that. I'll give it a low B. I think it's kind of in that range with the Jaina and Anduin. It's not too bad, but nothing too remarkable. Next, we have the original Gul'dan portrait. It's iconic, amazing, classic Warlock. Looks great golden. I'm going to give it an S. I love me some Warlock. I love Golden Gul'dan. It's just a really iconic, beautiful portrait, and you just cannot go wrong with it. Next, we have Horseman Uther. This is more recent, was like part of that Hallows Eve bundle. It's Uther with the same voice lines, but he sounds a little bit more demonic. The portrait itself is very underwhelming. It's just not that particularly appealing to the eye, and there's no like animation or border. I was really underwhelmed by this, and I don't think I'll ever use it. I'm gonna give it an F. I'm just not sold on Horseman Uther. I just don't think it's anything particularly special. We have the original Jaina. Unfortunately, nerfed Jaina, but still, Jaina is an S-tier portrait all the way. I don't know, maybe I'm just a simp for Jaina, but I love Jaina. I love most portraits about her, and this one, all golden, lit up, is beautiful. Pre-nerf, it was even better, but still, at this version, very, very, very solid. Next, we have the Mage Portrait Kel'Thuzad. When I first got this, I was blown away by it. I thought this was S-tier, but the more I got to play with it, the less I got blown away by it. I still think it's a really solid portrait. It's really well animated. It's got a nice entrance. The hero power does a little bit of cool stuff, but overall, just falls short of S for me. It's in that Deathwing territory, but a very solid one, and definitely A tier for me. Next is Khadgar, yet another mage portrait. So many mage portraits, it's crazy. I think Khadgar's alright, but again, I think he's kind of a bitch. I know people, like, apparently he's iconic in World of Warcraft, but I didn't play it, and I see this guy with, like, a bird and, like, a staff. I'm like, what's this guy doing? He's nothing special. So I'm gonna give him a C. I'm not sold on Khadgar. I know people think he's a Chad. I just think he's a little whatever. I'm like, whatever. Just leave me alone, okay? Leave me alone. Next, we have the 1,000 win Anduin portrait, and I find he kind of looks constipated, like he's trying to take a dump here. It's like, Argh. But I don't, you know how I feel about Anduin. I'm not a huge fan, and the 1,000 win portrait to me is pretty underwhelming. I'm gonna give it a C, and again, for me, it's just constipated Anduin, and I don't really want to have to deal with that mess. Next, we have King Rastakhan, a Shaman portrait. It's alright, he's pretty cool, animated, lit up, and all that stuff, but overall, I don't know, there's better options for Shaman. He's okay, I'll put him middle of the road, low B, but again, nothing too special. Next, we have Kultir and Jaina, the last Tavern Pass mage portrait, and definitely my favorite. She looks really cool with the icy background, the icy staff. My only issue is she feels a little bit too small in the portrait in the game, but overall, I'm a big fan of it, and again, you guys know I love Jaina, so I'm gonna give it an A. I'll put it with this Shaman one. I think it's pretty sweet, but definitely not at that high top tier level. Next, we have Lady Liadrin, Paladin portrait. I think you get it for getting level 20 in WoW. Really love this Paladin portrait. It's my favorite. She looks amazing all lit up, and the animation voice lines are sweet. I'll give her an S. I love me some Lady Liadrin. We have Lady Vashti for Shaman, or is it Vash? I ask every time, and I always forget every time. Shaman portrait, I've barely seen it play because Shaman's been until now with Evolved Shaman, barely seen play once it came out. And yeah, it's pretty sweet actually. It's one of the better Shaman ones. I like it quite a bit. I'll give it a high B. It just looks really like colorful and just spectacular, honestly. Next, we have the 1,000 win Uther portrait, and for me, besides the fact he looks like Brian Kibler, it just feels out of place as a portrait in the game to me. I don't know, it just looks too realistic. I don't know what it is. The other Uthers don't look anything like this. It's okay, but definitely not one of my favorites, but I guess the Kibler resemblance will give it to a low B. Next, we have Lunara, the female Druid portrait. Not the biggest fan of Lunara. She's alright, but for me, Malfurion just is more iconic, more kind of badass, and she does a good job. She's better than Elise to me, but just that. Just slightly above Elise, not the biggest fan. We have Madame Lazul priest portrait. She is a nasty, ugly, kind of priest character, and you know what? That's iconic, because priest is nasty, ugly. I hate it. So, it fits the bill pretty well. I'll give her a B. She's not too bad. Next, we have Magni Bronzebeard, the ultimate pay-to-win portrait. This one costs like 10 bucks. Thankfully, one of my mods gifted to me. And shortly after that, I got rank 1 legend playing Magni. He literally has an emote that says, buy my beard. Literally telling you need to buy him. I love Magni. The whole animation just on the hero power is awesome with the hammer coming down. I gotta give him an S. Not quite Garrosh, but he's just got a special place in my heart. Next, we have Medivh, the rogue portrait. This one's pretty cool. It's one of the few rogue portraits available, and not too bad. It's not Balera for me, but it's very solid. I'll give Medivh a high B. Definitely not too bad for a rogue portrait. We got Malfurion, the iconic original Druid portrait, and I love him golden. He looks really good, badass. Not quite an S-tier OG portrait, but really close. I'll give him like a middling A ranking. It's not too bad at all. We have Mecha Jaraxxus, kind of a goofy portrait for Warlock. A lot of people hate on this one. I actually think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of cool. The flavor is pretty neat. The animations, the voice lines are pretty funny. I'm going to give it a B. I know a lot of people hate on this one, but I'm a Mecha Jaraxxus fan. I can't help myself. Next, we have Medivh. I got this one with the World of Warcraft movie, which I still haven't watched, but it only cost $5. So I bought it literally for this portrait, and I never use it. I'm not a big fan of the Medivh portrait. I know people like Medivh, but I just find it underwhelming, to say the least. It's okay, but for me, it's kind of in that C territory. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. So we have Morgul, the Oracle Shaman portrait. He's a Murloc. He makes Murloc-y sounds. If you're into that kind of stuff, that's cool. I'm not. I just don't see it. I'll give it a very low C, not quite a fail, but yeah, it's not for me. Next, we have N'Zoth, the Warlock portrait. That is unbelievable. The voice lines, top-notch. The animation on the hero power has the eye of N'Zoth. The animation of it coming in is great. The border is all corrupted and amazing. This is the greatest portrait in Hearthstone history so far, in my opinion. Absolute god tier, S tier, ridiculously good. I love this portrait. Holy crap. It isn't really worth $80 is what I spent on it, but still, unbelievably good. So freaking good. Next, we have Nager and Garrosh, the new warrior portrait just put in the shop like last week, and I regret buying this because it sucks. I feel like it just looks so plain. It's offensively plain. All the other Garrosh portraits are better. Every warrior portrait is better. And I spent like 10, 12, 50 on this for 5 packs I didn't need and a portrait I don't like. So who's the idiot now? I'm giving it an F. I'm really not sold on that portrait. Next, we have Nemzi, the warlock portrait that never stops taunting you, never stops emoting like a sarcastic little brat, and she drives me crazy, and I want to strangle her, so I'm going to give her an F. I don't care if it looks cool that she's, like, on this giant thing and everything else. She just will not stop being such a troll, and it pisses me off. So you know what? You go to the bottom. That's your punishment. Next, we have the level 50 portrait, Night Slayer, Balera. It's one of the only other rogue portraits out there, and I don't really like it that much. Like, I think people have been waiting so long for another rogue portrait that they're like, yeah, I love Night Slayer Balera, I gotta pick it. And I picked it myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really not that big a fan. I'm just gonna use regular Balera, so I gotta give it a low B. I'm just not sold on it. Next, we have Prince Arthas, Paladin portrait. Pretty badass. Not amazing, but pretty solid. He's like an A tier type of a portrait. It's not like overwhelmingly badass, but he's just got this aura about him that, and the way you unlock him feels really good going through that adventure. And I'll give him an A. I respect the Arthas game. We have Rexxar, the original Rexxar. I love him golden with his bow animated. It's really sweet. OG Rexxar, as much as I hate the Hunter class, I think he's pretty sweet. I'll give him a low S. He's definitely one of those iconic portraits. Next, we have Scholar Jaina, or Mormon Jaina, or whatever you want to call her. She's just kind of plain. She's just kind of there. She costs way too much. She has no cool voice lines, no animation, nothing special. She's just there. She's just Jaina. I'll give her a C. Next, we have the 1000 Wing Gul'dan, Shadow Gul'dan. It's not bad, pretty badass. But for me, I like the iconic 500 Wing Gul'dan just a little bit more. So I'll give him an A, but it's definitely one of the better 1000 Wing portraits. Pretty sweet in my opinion. We also have the 1000 Wing Malfurion. He looks a hell of a lot like the regular Malfurion, just a little bit more grandiose, a little bit more badass, but they covered those nips, man. They covered those nips, they censored it, and I see that, Blizzard. You censored Jaina, you're censoring the Malfurion nips. I gotta give it a slightly low A. It's just a little bit too much for me. We have Sir Annoyotron, and yes, he's really annoying. Yes, he's garbage. Yes, he's an F. I cannot stand this piece of mech trash. Will you shut up, please? Next, we have Sylvanas the Hunter portrait. Unbelievably beautiful. This is one of my favorite paid portraits as well. Just looks gorgeous. The animations are great. Everything about it is spectacular. Absolutely S tier, and very high S tier at that. We have the Thunder King, another Shaman portrait that's okay. It's pretty cool. Not bad, but again, it's just how many Shaman portraits do I need that kind of have this vibe to it? It's alright. I'll give it a B, but nothing amazing. We have Thrall, the OG Thrall. Pretty cool, especially golden, the orb lit up, all golden like that. I don't put it quite as high as the other OG portraits for the most part, but it can hang around Malfurion and Iron's nips. I think that can be appropriate. We have Thrall, Son of Dortan, one of the early Tavern Pass, paid Tavern Pass portraits, and yeah, this one's underwhelming as hell. There's like, it just, I'm never, ever gonna want to use this. It just looks so primitive, so underwhelming. Like, why would I ever use this just over a regular Thrall? So for that reason, I gotta give it an F. I just don't see the appeal at all. Next, we have Tyrande, the priest portrait, the only priest portrait I ever use because I love Tyrande. She just looks gorgeous, she looks elegant, and makes me feel a little less disgusted playing priests when I do play it. So Tyrande, just for the fact that you make priest playable for me, makes you an S. You are a legend for that very reason. We have the 1000 win Uther. He's got like the big sword and a big book or tome, and he's alright, not bad. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the level 50 portraits, and he's kind of a middling one. Not quite as good as like the Jaina one, but probably can go hang out with Rexxar. Again, I'm not in love with them, and it's sad because it takes a lot of work to get to the level 50. Then we have the regular Uther, who I do think is pretty badass, pretty well, especially at the golden animated level. Not quite S tier, but definitely, again, like Malfurion Thrall level. Very solid, very iconic. We have Balera, the OG rogue portrait, and she is amazing. Spectacular animated. At least the fact, Rogue hasn't had a lot of portraits, but they haven't needed a lot because they have Balera. She carries almost as hard as Edwin has after all these years. Spectacular, absolute S tier portrait. We have the 1000 win Hunter portrait, and yes, this portrait does look like you would look if you played 1000 games of Face Hunter. Something just ain't right here. It's like he hit his head. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm giving it an F. He's missing like a chromosome or something. Something's gone awry with the 1000 win Hunter. And then we have the 1000 win Shaman portrait. And again, it's just another Shaman portrait that's pretty good. Not amazing, but it's pretty good. I'll put it a bit above the middling ones in like a low A, but again, it doesn't really like pop out to me. We have Song Rexxar. I think this was from the Book of Heroes from Hunter. It's not bad. It's one of the better Hunter portraits. Better than the 1001 Hunter, but it's still kind of middle of the road for me. I'll give it a B, but it's nothing too offensive. We have Wolf Rider Thrall. This was the last Tavern Pass Thrall portrait. It's not the best one. I already said I like Altric better. The main reason I don't like this one so much is Thrall is so tiny in this portrait. Like, he barely makes up any of it. It's like this little tiny little guy, and when it's a portrait, you kind of want to be like intimidated or have that big presence, and that's just not there. So if he was bigger, I think it would be way more badass, because it looks really sweet riding the wolf, right? He's riding the wolf, and it's got the big hammer. Thrall's just way too small on it, so I'm going to give it a low B. And then last we have Illidan. He's made life a living nightmare for Hearthstone players almost all year, and I'm just really not a big fan of this portrait. It's just mediocre as hell to me. Not quite an F, but I'm going to give it a low C. It's one of the worst, it is the worst basic portrait in my opinion. So there you have it. That's every portrait in Hearthstone history rated. Let me know in the comments below, how wrong am I? What are your favorite portraits? What are your least favorite portraits? And I'll let you guys know when we'll hit you up with another tier list. Have a great day, and stay salty, my friends.